Have you ever noticed how the strongest foundations are built in silence? Before the applause, before the recognition, before the world finally turns its head, there is always a season where a woman stands by herself. No cheering crowd, no promises of rescue, no guarantee that tomorrow will be easier than today. Just her heartbeat, her determination, and a decision that refuses to surrender. The world has taught many women to believe they must be chosen before they can become valuable, that someone else must open the door before they are worthy of walking through it. But history whispers another truth. The women who transformed their lives were not always surrounded by supporters. They were often surrounded by doubt, rejection, misunderstanding, and silence. Yet they kept building. A real woman does not measure her strength by the number of hands holding hers. She measures it by the courage she finds when those hands disappeared. She learns that loneliness is not the same as emptiness. There is a sacred place inside every human spirit where resilience is born, where pain is transformed into wisdom, where fear slowly loses its voice because purpose begins to speak louder. Standing alone is never the end of her story. It is often the place where the truest version of herself is finally introduced. Think about the walls that life tries to place around us. Failure, betrayal, loss, criticism. Every one of them looks like an ending until someone decides to use those same stones to build a staircase instead of a prison. That decision changes everything. The world cannot stop a woman who has learned to build from broken pieces because she no longer waits for perfect conditions. She creates possibility in imperfect moments. She discovers that confidence is not something handed to her by approval. It is something earned through surviving the days she thought she could not survive. Today, this is not just a conversation about independence. It is a reminder that your greatest companion can become your own unwavering spirit. Because a real woman builds her life even when she stands alone. And when she finally reaches the mountain, she has climbed with her own courage. The world does not simply see her success. It sees the undeniable power of a soul that refused to stop building. A woman's greatest transformation rarely begins with applause. It begins with a quiet decision that no one else may ever witness. There comes a moment in life when waiting becomes more painful than moving forward. Waiting for permission, waiting for approval, waiting for someone to believe in her before she believes in herself. Society often teaches women to seek validation before taking bold steps, as though confidence must be granted by others instead of discovered within. Yet true strength is born the instant a woman realizes that the permission she has been searching for has always belonged to her. It was never locked away in another person's opinion, nor hidden behind someone else's acceptance. It has been resting inside her, waiting for the courage to awaken it. The world has a way of assigning limits before it recognizes potential. It may tell a woman she is too young, too old, too quiet, too ambitious, too emotional, or too different. These labels can become invisible chains if she chooses to wear them. But the remarkable thing about chains made from words is that they lose their power the moment she refuses to carry them. Strength is not found in proving everyone wrong. It is found in refusing to let their doubts define the direction of her life. A woman who understands this no longer spends her energy asking whether she is enough. She begins asking whether she is being true to the gifts, dreams, and purpose placed within her, often disguises itself as fear. Many women hesitate because they imagine every possible failure before taking the first step. They replay criticism that has not yet happened. They prepare for rejection that may never come. They convince themselves that the perfect moment will arrive someday. But perfection is a promise life never makes. Growth belongs to those who are willing to begin while their hands still tremble, while uncertainty still whispers, while confidence is still growing. Every meaningful journey starts with imperfect courage. Every remarkable achievement begins with someone deciding that fear will no longer be the loudest voice in the room. There is extraordinary freedom in realizing that your future does not require unanimous approval. Not everyone will understand your vision. Some people only recognize success after it becomes visible. Before that, they may question your choices, misunderstand your intentions, or underestimate your ability. Their opinions may be loud, but they cannot become your identity unless you allow them to settle in your heart. A woman who knows her purpose learns to separate the noise around her from the truth within her. She understands that criticism often reflects the limitations of the observer rather than the potential of the dreamer. Life continually presents moments where external permission seems necessary. A career change, starting a business, returning to education, leaving unhealthy environments, speaking up in difficult conversations, or choosing a path that others cannot understand. In each of these moments, waiting for universal agreement can delay a lifetime of possibilities. The strongest women are not those who never experience hesitation. They are the ones who move despite hesitation. Courage does not erase fear. It simply refuses to let fear become the decision maker. Every challenge faced independently becomes evidence that strength is increasing. Every obstacle overcome without constant reassurance deepens self-trust. Confidence grows through action far more than through compliments. A woman who repeatedly honors her own decisions begins to recognize something powerful. She becomes less dependent on external praise because she has witnessed her own resilience. She has watched herself survive disappointment, adapt to change, solve problems, and continue moving when circumstances demanded everything she had. Those experiences become a foundation no criticism can easily shake. There is also a profound difference between seeking wisdom and seeking permission. Wisdom welcomes guidance, learning, and thoughtful advice. Permission waits for someone else to authorize a life that already belongs to you. One expands your perspective. The other postpones your potential. A wise woman listens, learns, reflects, and then chooses her path with conviction. She respects the voices of experience without surrendering ownership of her own destiny. The most inspiring women throughout history were rarely invited into greatness. They stepped into it because they believed their purpose mattered more than their fear. They understood that doors do not always open automatically. Sometimes they must be knocked upon repeatedly. Sometimes they must be built from the ground up. Sometimes they are discovered only after walking through unfamiliar roads that others avoided. Their lives remind us that extraordinary futures are often created by ordinary people who refuse to wait for extraordinary permission. Strength begins the moment a woman stops asking whether she is allowed to pursue the life she dreams of, and starts recognizing that every decision rooted in integrity, courage, and purpose is already enough to justify the journey, allowing conviction to rise above hesitation, replacing self-doubt with quiet determination, and transforming every step forward into proof that the greatest authority over her future has always lived within her rather than outside her. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned, yet the world often confuses the two. Solitude is frequently painted as something to escape, something to fear, as though a woman standing by herself must somehow be incomplete. But some of life's greatest discoveries are made in moments when there is no audience, no constant conversation, and no one else's expectations filling the room. Solitude has a way of introducing a woman to herself. It removes distractions and forces her to hear the one voice that matters most, the quiet truth within her own heart. Many people spend years running from silence because silence has a habit of revealing everything they have been avoiding. It uncovers hidden fears, unanswered questions, and dreams that have been buried beneath responsibilities and opinions. Yet for the woman willing to stay in that silence, something extraordinary begins to happen. What once felt like loneliness slowly transforms into clarity. The emptiness she feared becomes space where new ideas can grow. The uncertainty she resisted becomes an invitation to create a future that belongs entirely to her. Life has a remarkable way of slowing us down when we need to rediscover who we are. Relationships change, friendships fade, plans fall apart. People who promise to stay sometimes choose different paths. At first, these moments can feel like loss, but with time they often reveal themselves as opportunities. They strip away everything that distracted us from our own purpose. Without constant dependence on others, a woman begins to ask different questions. Instead of wondering who will walk beside her, she begins wondering where her own feet are capable of taking her. Instead of asking who will believe in her dreams, she starts believing in them herself. The strongest foundations are rarely built in crowded places. They are built in quiet moments of reflection, discipline, and persistence. Every skill mastered, every book studied, every habit strengthened, and every personal victory achieved in solitude becomes a brick in a life that cannot easily be shaken. While the world celebrates visible success, it often overlooks the invisible hours that created it. Those unseen moments are where character is formed. They teach patience when progress feels slow. They teach discipline when motivation disappears. They teach resilience when no one is watching closely enough to offer encouragement. A woman who embraces solitude learns to become her own source of peace. She no longer depends on constant approval to feel valuable or constant companionship to feel complete. She begins enjoying her own thoughts because they are no longer filled with self-doubt. She discovers interests she never had time to explore, talents she never believed she possessed, and strengths that remained hidden while she relied too heavily on the presence of others. Solitude becomes less like a prison and more like fertile ground where confidence quietly takes root. There is also freedom in no longer comparing your journey to everyone else's. In solitude, the noise of comparison begins to fade. Social expectations lose their grip. The pressure to meet someone else's timeline becomes less important than honoring your own growth. A woman starts measuring success not by how closely her life resembles another person's, but by how faithfully it reflects her own values and purpose. That shift changes everything because fulfillment is never found in imitation. It is found in authenticity. Challenges faced alone often become the greatest teachers. When there is no one immediately available to solve every problem, creativity awakens. When comfort is limited, determination grows stronger. Every obstacle overcome independently strengthens confidence because it proves that capability was present all along. The woman who once questioned her ability gradually becomes the woman others look to for strength, not because life became easier, but because she became wiser through every season she endured. Solitude also teaches gratitude in unexpected ways. It helps a woman appreciate genuine relationships rather than simply surrounding herself with people to avoid being alone. She learns that quality matters more than quantity, that a few sincere connections are worth more than endless superficial ones. She stops fearing empty spaces in her life because she understands they are temporary chapters, not permanent destinations. The peace she develops within herself allows her to enter future relationships from a place of wholeness instead of need, bringing confidence instead of insecurity, purpose instead of dependence, and quiet strength instead of constant validation, discovering that the seasons she once feared were actually preparing her to build a life rooted in resilience, wisdom, and an unshakable sense of self that no circumstance could ever take away. Self-worth is one of the few treasures that cannot be given by another person. And because it cannot be given, it cannot truly be taken away unless we surrender it ourselves. Yet many women grow up believing that their value depends on how they are seen, how they are praised, or how closely they fit the expectations placed upon them. They are taught, directly or indirectly, that acceptance is proof of worth and that rejection is evidence of failure. But these beliefs place the heart on unstable ground because the opinions of others are always changing. A compliment today can become criticism tomorrow, and if identity is built on those shifting voices, confidence will rise and fall with every passing judgment. A woman who understands her worth learns that value is not created by applause. It is revealed through character, integrity, compassion, resilience, and the quiet choices she makes when no one is watching. She does not become valuable because someone recognizes her potential. She is valuable long before anyone notices it. Just as a diamond remains precious even when buried beneath the earth, her worth exists whether the world acknowledges it or not. Recognition may uncover value, but it never creates it. Too often, people mistake approval for identity. They spend years trying to earn acceptance by becoming what others expect them to be. They silence their opinions to avoid conflict, hide their talents to make others comfortable, or abandon their dreams because someone declared them unrealistic. Little by little, they lose sight of themselves while trying to satisfy expectations that continue to change. The tragedy is not that they fail to please everyone. The tragedy is that they forget who they were meant to become. While chasing approval, they were never guaranteed to receive. True self-worth grows through self-respect. It is reflected in the standards a woman sets for her life, the boundaries she protects, and the decisions she makes, even when they are unpopular. She begins to understand that saying no to what diminishes her is often the greatest expression of saying yes to herself. She no longer feels guilty for protecting her peace, her time, or her energy. She recognizes that every moment spent compromising her values for temporary acceptance moves her further away from the life she truly deserves. There will always be voices eager to define who she should be. Some will judge her for speaking too boldly, while others will criticize her for remaining quiet. Some will question her ambition, while others will doubt her ability. If she listens to every opinion, she will spend her life changing directions without ever reaching her destination. Confidence is not built by convincing everyone else to believe in you. It is built by refusing to abandon yourself when others fail to understand your path. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen self-worth. Failure no longer becomes proof of inadequacy, but evidence of growth. Mistakes become lessons instead of permanent labels. Rejection becomes redirection rather than personal defeat. A woman with healthy self-worth understands that circumstances may affect her emotions, but they do not determine her identity. She may experience loss without believing she has lost her value. She may face criticism without concluding she is unworthy. She may encounter disappointment without allowing hope to disappear. One of the greatest signs of inner confidence is the ability to celebrate others without feeling diminished. A woman who knows her own worth does not see another person's success as a threat. She understands that someone else's light does not make hers shine any less brightly. Instead of competing for validation, she focuses on becoming the fullest expression of her own potential. This freedom allows her to grow without comparison and to appreciate her unique journey without resentment. As self-worth deepens, fear gradually loses its control. The fear of rejection becomes smaller because acceptance is no longer the foundation of identity. The fear of failure becomes less overwhelming because mistakes no longer define personal value. The fear of standing alone begins to fade because companionship is no longer mistaken for completeness. She discovers a quiet confidence that remains steady regardless of changing circumstances. Knowing that her value is rooted in who she is rather than what she owns, who applauds her, or how often the world chooses to acknowledge her presence. Carrying herself with dignity through every season because she understands that the strongest foundation any woman can possess is the unwavering belief that her worth has always existed within her and has never depended on the permission, approval, or recognition of anyone else's life rarely unfolds according to the plans we carefully create. There are dreams that collapse without warning, relationships that end despite our best efforts, opportunities that disappear just as they seem within reach, and moments that leave us questioning whether everything we have worked for has been lost. In those moments, it is easy to believe that a setback is the final chapter. But the women who build extraordinary lives understand something different. They know that a setback is not a signal to stop building. It is simply new material waiting to be used in a stronger foundation. Every challenge carries two possibilities. It can become a wall that blocks the path ahead, or it can become a stepping stone that lifts a woman to a higher place. The difference is not found in the obstacle itself, but in the perspective she chooses to adopt. Some people spend years staring at closed doors, mourning the opportunities that disappeared. Others gather the lessons from every disappointment and quietly begin constructing new doors of their own. They refuse to allow pain to become permanent residence in their hearts, because they understand that suffering can teach valuable lessons if they are willing to learn instead of surrender. Failure has a strange reputation. Many people treat it as evidence that they are incapable, while in reality it is often evidence that they are courageous enough to try. A woman who never risks failure may protect herself from disappointment, but she also protects herself from growth. Every meaningful achievement requires the willingness to face uncertainty. Every success story contains hidden chapters of mistakes, rejection, and perseverance that the world rarely sees. The victories people admire are built upon countless moments when giving up would have been easier than continuing. Setbacks have a remarkable way of revealing inner strength. When life removes comfort, creativity often appears. When familiar paths disappear, new possibilities begin to emerge. A woman discovers abilities she never knew she possessed, because difficult seasons demand qualities that easy seasons never require. Patience grows when progress feels slow. Wisdom develops through experience rather than convenience. Compassion deepens because personal struggles make her more understanding of the struggles faced by others. What once appeared to be destruction often becomes preparation for a stronger future. There is power in refusing to allow painful experiences to define personal identity. A broken relationship does not make a woman broken. A failed business does not make her a failure. A lost opportunity does not erase her potential. Circumstances describe events, but they do not describe the person. When she separates her identity from her experiences, she begins to recover more quickly. She no longer carries disappointment as proof of inadequacy. Instead, she carries it as wisdom that shapes better decisions moving forward. Growth often requires releasing the belief that every setback must make immediate sense. Some lessons reveal their purpose only after time has passed. The opportunity that seemed impossible to lose may have been preventing something greater. The delay that felt unfair may have been protecting her from a direction that would not have fulfilled her purpose. Although uncertainty can be uncomfortable, faith in the process allows resilience to replace despair. She continues taking small steps, even when the destination remains unclear, because she trusts that progress is still being made beneath the surface. Every obstacle overcome adds another layer of confidence. The woman who once doubted whether she could survive difficult circumstances eventually becomes someone who no longer questions her ability to endure. She remembers the battles she has already won, the tears she has already survived, and the fears she has already conquered. Those memories become evidence that future challenges, no matter how intimidating they appear, can also be faced with courage, and determination. The most inspiring lives are not built without hardship. They are built because hardship was transformed into purpose. Every disappointment becomes a lesson. Every rejection becomes direction. Every delay becomes preparation. Every painful chapter becomes a source of wisdom that strengthens the chapters still waiting to be written. Instead of allowing adversity to harden her heart, she allows it to deepen her character, choosing resilience over bitterness, hope over despair, and action over regret. Understanding that every setback places another brick into the foundation of a life that is stronger, wiser, more compassionate, and far more meaningful than the one she would have built if everything had always gone according to plan. There is a quiet kind of power that cannot be measured by titles, wealth, popularity, or recognition. It is the power that grows inside a woman when she chooses to believe in herself long before the world believes in her. This confidence is not loud, boastful, or demanding. It does not seek attention because it is not built on the opinions of others. It is steady, deeply rooted, and unshakable. A woman who truly believes in herself walks through life with a different kind of presence. She is not untouched by fear or uncertainty, but she refuses to let either of them decide the direction of her journey. Believing in yourself begins with accepting that you do not need to have every answer before taking the first step. Too often, women delay their dreams because they feel they must become perfect before they begin. They wait until they know enough, until they feel confident enough, until every detail is certain. Yet confidence rarely comes before action. It grows because of action. Every challenge faced, every lesson learned, and every obstacle overcome strengthens the belief that tomorrow's difficulties can also be conquered. Self-belief is not created in moments of comfort. It is forged through consistent courage in moments of uncertainty. The world will always have opinions. Some people will underestimate your abilities because they cannot imagine what is possible beyond their own limitations. Others may criticize your choices simply because they are different from the path they would have taken. If a woman spends her life trying to satisfy every voice around her, she will eventually lose the ability to hear her own. Self-belief requires the wisdom to distinguish between constructive guidance and unnecessary doubt. It means listening with humility while refusing to surrender your vision to those who cannot see what your heart already knows. Every successful woman has encountered moments when quitting seemed easier than continuing. There were days when progress was invisible, when sacrifices felt endless, and when hope appeared distant. The difference was not that these women possessed extraordinary talent alone. It was that they chose persistence over surrender. They continued, moving even when they felt uncertain, because they trusted that every small step mattered. Great achievements are rarely the result of one dramatic moment. They are built through countless ordinary decisions to keep going despite exhaustion, setbacks, and discouragement. Self-belief also transforms the way a woman responds to failure. Instead of seeing mistakes as proof that she is incapable, she begins viewing them as evidence that she is growing. Every unsuccessful attempt becomes information rather than defeat. She understands that mastery in any field requires patience, practice, and resilience. The fear of failure gradually loses its influence because she realizes that remaining still out of fear costs far more than making imperfect progress. One of the most remarkable qualities of a woman who believes in herself is her ability to inspire others without trying to impress them. Confidence has a quiet influence. It encourages people to believe that their own dreams are possible. It reminds others that courage is contagious and that resilience can be learned. She does not need to convince the world of her worth because her actions speak with greater authority than words ever could. Her consistency becomes her testimony, and her perseverance becomes a source of hope for those who are still searching for their own strength. Believing in yourself does not mean pretending to be fearless. It means acknowledging fear without allowing it to become the leader of your life. It means recognizing weakness while refusing to define yourself by it. It means accepting that growth will involve discomfort and trusting that every difficult season is shaping someone stronger than the person who entered it. Confidence is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to continue despite struggle. As this belief becomes stronger, a woman no longer depends on external circumstances to determine her peace. Success becomes meaningful, but it no longer defines her identity. Failure becomes painful, but it no longer destroys her confidence. Praise becomes appreciated, but it is no longer necessary for her to feel valuable. Criticism becomes considered, but it no longer has the power to silence her purpose. She discovers a freedom that many people spend a lifetime searching for, the freedom that comes from knowing her value, trusting her abilities, embracing her purpose, and walking forward with unwavering conviction, becoming the kind of woman whose quiet confidence cannot be shaken because it is rooted not in the changing opinions of the world, but in the unchanging belief that she is capable of building the life she was created to live.